Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, January 30th, and class is in session. We are covering local athletics and high school sports. I am live here at a sold-out crowd at Big Rock Golf and Pub. This is brought to you by Coachella Sports and Entertainment Stadium Authority, and I am just so fired. I'm fired up. It's Wednesday. I'm getting kind of giddy because the Super Bowl is right around the corner. My favorite time of the year, even though my team is never in it. People are asking me, like, Micah, how are you getting ready for this game? Like, what are you doing? What are you watching? What kind of film? And I'm telling people, like, oh, I'm watching this. It's a great series. You can watch it on NFL if you have NFL Game Pass. It's a great series. It's about I think he's got seven or eight. It's 7 or 8 games. Tom Brady's all of his Super Bowls, right? So you can go through all of those, and they're so fun to watch. They're so fun to watch, watching from his very first one to the most recent being the loss to the Eagles. And it's going to be a fun game. I'm super excited. It's kind of I'm kind of extra excited about this one too because I changed, being a football guy, I changed my favorite quarterbacks, and that's kind of like a shocker to me. It's almost like I'm on a honeymoon right now, like watching like highlights and stuff. But like I've been a Dan Marino guy through and through, thick and thin, no matter what, and I'll always ride or die with him. But you know, watching Tom Brady and the things that he does and the leadership that he brings and just doing it day in and day out, I'm just so fascinated, and I've gotten to see an up-close look at it, being that my favorite team, the Dolphins, plays his twice a year, and he just rolls them, and it's not even close. It's not even fun watching a Dolphins-Patriots game, even though we had that good one this year, but that was a fluke for sure. Let's do some housekeeping. We had some great basketball games last night. Great local basketball games last night. I was, in fact, at the Xavier Prep Rancho Mirage game. High-scoring affair, actually, at the end. 78-62. Xavier Prep did pull it out. Unbelievably, going into the fourth quarter, Rancho Mirage was up 50-44, and the basically the turning point of the game was defensive possessions, getting stops, and Joshua Clark from both sides of each corner hitting 3 triples in a row. Ended up hitting 4 in the quarter. You had Lorenzo Elias, senior night, showing some senior leadership, making plays, leaving his feet all over the floor, making plays and ones here and there. Isaiah Skinner is just a blossoming young star in this league, and I'm excited for these Xavier Prep Saints to finish off this season strong. And we're actually going to be going over how these Saints and other teams could possibly be making the playoffs, and I'm going to give you an entire recap of how the playoffs work and how the seedings work based on your divisions and whatnot. Other scores, Palm Springs still can't finish the job winning conference. They lose to Shadow Hills in overtime, 81-72. Palm Desert did take care of La Quinta, 65-34 for the DEL games. Yeah, tough one for the Blackhawks. For DVL games, boys, Yucca Valley 64, Desert Mirage 41, 29 Palms, putting it to Cat City 75-35, and Indio still undefeated, taking care of Banning 78-52. Girls basketball, Cat City with a nail biter finishes the game on a game-winning buzzer beater. Nina Wallace hits it to win the game. I believe that one was in double overtime. Finishes it off 66-63. Coachella Valley beating DHS 65-21. Excuse me. Desert Mirage losing to Yucca Valley 59-29. Okay, and for DEL games, girls, La Quinta squeaks one out against Palm Desert 40-63. Palm Springs beating Shadow Hills 52-29. Xavier Prep putting one on Rancho Mirage 73-49, and Banning for another DEL game there. I don't know how that one got mixed up. Beat Indio 44-40. Soccer, not too much going on last night. More games, I believe, will be on the slate for tonight. I do know, however, girls Palm Desert beat La Quinta last night to take the sweep for the flag game. That very good point in that is that now that guarantees Palm Desert a share of the DEL title, and that is very telling, and it's great for that program because La Quinta Girls has had a strong hold on conference championships the past 6 seasons, sole possession dating back to when they were in the DVL. So it's good to see a bit of a changing of the guard at least. So we'll at least have one new winner there for girls soccer in DEL. On a more somber note, tough to hear things like this. Soccer referee Michael Devenish died Monday night after collapsing on the field of a JV soccer game. He was refereeing the Xavier Prep and Rancho Mirage soccer game. He was one of the 2 refs there, and about 10 minutes into the match, unexpectedly collapsed. Didn't collide with anyone, didn't get hit by the ball or anything like that. The game was actually canceled afterwards after he was medical attention was brought and he was taken off the field. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to finish that game if I was a player for sure. That it is tough, and both ADs from both schools did agree that wouldn't affect the standings, so they're not a big deal. There is no word on the cause. The process was done properly, what the schools are told. So everything was done to try to take care of this man as much as they could. A little bit about Mr. Devenish. He was a retiree of the Coachella Valley from Wisconsin, had his own business, and was very passionate about the pitch and about soccer and being out there, and always really enjoyed it. And his family was very greatly involved in soccer, and thoughts and prayers go out to his family and relatives and loved ones. And that brings up a good note to remind us, refs are people too. And so when you criticize them and ridicule them and you say hurtful things, you just have to remember that these people, this isn't just their full-time job. They do have other lives besides this, and it is actually nice to have those types of people be able to spend their free time to ref these games, and so that we can have referees at all of these local prep games, whether it is varsity, whether it is freshman, whether it's tiddlywinks, whether it's football, man. I appreciate it having these refs around, and they don't get as much credit as they do deserve, because it is a thankless job. It's a difficult one that if you've never been in it, you wouldn't understand. So props to those refs, and thoughts and prayers to Michael Devenish and his family. Other notes, all DVL water polo. Speaking of water polo, let's get some water. Beautiful. All DEL water polo teams. Some notes from that. Braden Smith from La Quinta wins the offensive MVP. Kyle Senecola, shout out Kyle. I've known Kyle since he was a little guy. Awesome. Big ups to Kyle. Xavier Prep defensive MVP. Props to Kyle. Good job. The first place Saints had the most first team all DEL players with 4. Palm Desert had 3, La Quinta with 2, and Palm Springs with 1. And the first place Xavier Prep Saints Coach of the Year, Pavel Valvovic. Okay, so today actually was a great day in SoCal Coyotes land. We were actually at Cielo Vista Charter School, talking to the kids, all the grades out there, and we were talking to them about our Above the Line program. And the Above the Line program is it's leadership and taking ownership of your own life and what you can do and what you can accomplish by following these simple rules. And just being able to not only being a speaker myself, but being able to listen to the other speakers, Coach Cummings, one of the best in the Valley, speaking to different kids and being able to really shine some light on some of the things that kids need to understand growing up in this valley. And some of the notes that I've written down here, just want to go over them with you. One of the things that we always talk about being above the line, it's skillful, intentional, on purpose, and it's driven. No matter what it is, what you're doing in life, you always want to have those mindsets, because if I'm going to just do something that I really am passionate about, but I'm not going to give my full effort into it, well, then what's the point? If I'm going to just do something wishy-washy, how can I expect to have good results, right? And so it's all about how you act, believe, and behave, right? It's what you're doing. It's all of those things put together to help enrich your life, help enrich the things that you want to do. And as I continue on here, each person is born with something special. No matter what it is, Coach Cummings always talks about that he was put on this planet for one purpose, and I totally see that I was put here. And I was given this love for sports, and I need to share that with other people. And I can totally understand where he's coming from. Understanding what you're really passionate about and putting all of your effort into that. It's being a leader. Especially, it's a choice. You have to make a choice to be a leader, whether it is on the field, whether it's off the field, whether you're leading your family or whether you're leading a sports franchise, right? You have to lead every single day of your life, and that's something that's difficult for some people to grasp. And all of those choices, whether you make good ones or bad, affect how you are as a leader, right? One of the things, especially for sports, for prep athletes that want to learn how to be leaders, you have to have the ability to follow instructions, right? So you think about it as I always use football as a reference just because that's the thing that I know most, right? So I think about it as a football team. If I'm the quarterback and the head coach is giving me instructions, or my offensive coach is giving me instructions, and I just totally disregard whatever it is he's saying and not take into consideration his instruction and what he wants done, then how can I expect the guys that I'm leading in my offense and in my huddle to do the same for me when I ask the same of them to do something for me? It's a lot of give and take being a leader. Yes, you have to be able to take the reins on things, but you also have to be able to be humble and take instruction from others. Because in my opinion, that's what good leaders do. That's what great leaders do. Let's put it that way. That's what great leaders do. Being able to take what other people have to say within your circle, within your program, within your team, right? Being able to take what they say and apply it, or even just take it into consideration. Hey, this is a good idea. Let's maybe not use that here, but we can use it at another point. That will naturally give you more. It'll give you more from that person, because now they feel like that they're being used in any case, right? So being able to find out these different things and different avenues to help you lead is huge, and that'll only help the people around you want to help make you a better leader also. Another thing about being a leader, right? We have to find out who we are, what type of leader we are. Being the type of leader I am, I have to be honest, not many people like my style of leadership on the football field because I'm no nonsense. I don't take any guff from anyone, and if you do, I'll just sit you down because I don't care how good you are. I can coach up the next guy, or I can get the next guy up just as ready to play and just as ready to win for me as I do for someone else, right? And it's all about the team. There can't be any egos in my huddle, because when you start bringing in egos, that's when you start edging everything out, right? That's when everything else goes out the window. Now you're not worried about whether your team's going to win or lose. Now you're worried about stats and why didn't I get the ball here and why did he get the ball there. For me, as a quarterback, and for any quarterback, if you look at it on Sundays, guys are completing passes to multiple people, and it's a 7, 8 different completions to different guys, and you're not getting the guys that are catching 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 passes anymore, right? Yeah, maybe here and there sometimes a guy's going to go off and do so, but from a leadership standpoint, we got to get everybody involved. And one of the things, I'll give you a sneak peek from me as a coach, as a young coach, and I teach my quarterbacks, get everyone involved early and often. Get them engaged in the game. Because if the first time they're going to ever touch the ball is going to be the second drive of the third quarter, well, that kid just went the entire game of just maybe running routes, blocking. Yep, he's in it, but he's not really in it because he hasn't touched the ball yet, right? So as a young quarterback, get your receivers involved early, get your running backs involved early, be a leader by getting these guys involved in the game, and then now you have an idea of who's really in it, who has the flow, who has the juice, who has the fire to get your team moving. And that's when you can figure out the guys that are 8, 9 catches versus guys that are 3, 4, 5 catches, guys that are there for 3 touchdowns and guys that are there to convert on third down, right? It's all of those factors that lead into understanding what a good leader is and what type of leader you are. And this is a great quote. I love this one. If you want to be a champion, you have to hang around champions. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, I'm going to stand up here and raise my hand. I'm a champion. Yep. So you got to hang out with me. No, I see it more as like it's a mindset of being a champion. You have to show up and you have to wake up every day expecting to be or striving to be a champion, whether it's in your sport or whether it's at school, right? It's so funny for prep athletes especially. And I mean, I knew it was part of it, so it didn't really bother me much. But some guys that I knew were, well, my talents are just so good, I don't really need to worry about school. No, that's not true. Like, no, like, it's not true. I'm sorry. Like, you have to have school. Like, it is what it is. It goes hand in hand. And until you're a pro, you're going to be playing sports and going to school at the same time until then. So instead of just like fighting it, why not just enjoy the process and see it as another obstacle, and as like a competitor that I am, see it as something that you can compete against other people at. Right?
So how do you attack, not attack, but how do you confront kids who, like, Cardell Jones a few years ago said, I didn't come here to play school?
Exactly. Like, so you have guys like Cardell Jones who says something like that, and it's, I mean, like, hindsight is 20/20 now because we know where he's at or where he's not at, right? But so, like, when it comes to recruiting or when it comes to a coach, here's a story I have for you. Danny Woodhead, when he was getting looked at by the NFL, right? He went to a small school in Nebraska, actually, Division II or Division I AA at the time, all-time leading rusher, right? And one of the things that he joked about was some of these NFL teams called his middle school and elementary school teachers and friends and PE teachers and whatnot to try to figure out what type of person he is. Well, how was he in school back then? How is he now? So if you really like think like, oh, well, if school isn't really, I don't need school. Like, I came here to play sports and I don't need to worry about school. As a business owner, if I own a business or a company and I'm looking to hire you, I'm more likely to like the person that likes challenges, that likes to compete at everything they're due, versus somebody that's just like, oh, I'm only here to do one thing, right? So understand, when you make those types of comments and you don't enjoy school, people are going to notice that, and you're going to get stacked up against other people who they love school, or quote unquote they love school, right? On the surface, right? It's so funny, all of these guys in the NFL, they get asked like, oh, who's your favorite team growing up? What meeting am I in? Oh, I'm with the Cowboys. Oh, I was a Cowboys fan since the day I was born. I always loved the Cowboys, right? It's playing a game. So no matter what, even if you don't like school, it's a necessary thing. And in the long run, I mean, for me, I enjoy what I learned, especially in college, because you get to choose what you want to learn. You get to choose the classes that you want to put towards whatever it is that you're doing, or whatever it is that you want to do after sports. So just understand that when talking about school, and when you hear these other more notable athletes talk about school. Yep. So we got a couple more notes here. Huge thing for a leader. Failure is not an option. I don't. As a leader, you don't ever want to show your face. You never want to show that there is any doubt, because then once your team sees that, then it's all over, right? So you have to always compete to the very end and prove to your team that failure is not an option. We will not lose this game no matter what. Huge thing about a leader, and people that are actually like working on becoming better in your sport, like as a prep athlete, it's about your character, and it's about who you are when nobody is looking. What are you doing in the off season? What are you doing in your free time? What are you doing when there is nobody around to watch you train, right? Because I guarantee you that there is somebody that's out there not playing video games, or they're not just like out trying to cause a ruckus. They're perfecting their craft. They're trying to get to where they need to be, and they want to try to hit those goals, right? So just understand what it is that you're doing in that free time, and are you using it to your full advantage? One of the things that I noticed while we were there were it always, sometimes when we asked a question, the kids would raise their hands, and then there always had to be chatter in between. And we never asked them to talk or anything like that, right? So one of the things that I thought about was like when I used to watch film in high school or college, and there were times where we would watch film and a coach would pause and they'd have a coaching point. Everybody else in the back, like, it's like they had this moment to get out what they needed to say to their buddy real quick. Like, it was like it had to be a chatter fest, like right then and there. But then there was a moment where the coach would say it, all right, yeah, that's enough, all right, that's it, it's over, like, no more talking. But it would continue. But it would end when the player, the leader of the team said, hey, that's enough. We're not letting this happen again. So anytime that I was in my quarterback group, I would challenge my quarterbacks to whatever the coach just said. If I didn't think they were paying attention, I would call them out. Hey, what did he just say? What were we just talking about? And if they didn't know, they were going to get grief from me. Because if my guys aren't prepared, then that means as a starter, I'm not prepared, because those guys have to be prepared to go in right after me, whether it is we're up by 60, whether we're down by 60, or whether I got hurt on the first play of the game, right? So that is part of my job as the starter, is to get the guys behind me ready also. And that's something to think about when you're a leader for your team and you're moving on to college, and you're in your DB group or your linebacker group or running back group. You have to understand that you can be a leader within that group, not just the entire team, right? And to finish up, leaders are always learning. You always want to learn. You want more. You're never going to know more than the next guy, right? So understanding that leaders run exceptional leaders run a system, and they're always on their agenda, right? So if we can learn from mistakes and now add that to our system and our program, now that's just going to help enhance our program just as much, right? An example for that would be as a quarterback, right? If I read cover 2 in the flats and the guy decides to bail, and then he creeps up and jumps my 10-yard out and picks it and goes to the house. Okay, well, now I know next time to maybe hold my count a little longer so I can understand what that guy's doing. Is he triggering? Is he coming off? Is he playing hard? Is he playing strong? Or see what my safeties are doing, right? I can always add that into my system of checks to make sure that I'm getting everything done correctly, right? And so we crushed that first period of class right there, and I really enjoy that. That is some good stuff. Leadership is always something that can be taught in everyone. Everyone can be a leader, and you can lead yourself every single day. So we are going to take a quick recess, and when we come back, this is class. And we are back in class. We are brought to you by Coachella Sports and Entertainment Stadium Authority, and I am here live at Big Rock Golf and Pub. I was talking to Scott about I didn't know just happy hour meant you just got like a different menu. I knew it was like discounted stuff and like that's cool, but I didn't know it was just like, yeah, that's what that means. So if you're down at Big Rock Golf and Pub, happy hour is 3 to 6 out here, 3 to 6. We do have a sold out crowd right in front of me over here. These dudes are getting fired up. Probably just played a round of golf today. Good stuff. If you are looking for a place to watch the Super Bowl 53, Pats Rams, Big Rock Golf and Pub will have the game on. Seating is first come, first serve. The seating starts at noon, and it is $25 per seat. So go ahead, come on in, grab some drink, grab some food. There is industry night tomorrow. Saw somebody having the pastrami sandwich. That thing looked amazing. So go ahead and check that thing out. We are going to get back to local high school sports. We're going to try to figure out here how the playoffs working. How do the playoffs work? let's figure it out, right? Because we got new divisions. We got the Dell, the DVL, and then we got divisions 1, 2, 2A, 2A, 3, 4, 5. Let's figure it out, right? All right, so we're gonna go head on into this. Before we go into the actual standings, let's just understand the rules of CIF as best as we can, and that is gonna be a struggle. So stay with me.
Yeah, dude. It looks like you got like calculus like written down there. You're trying to solve a problem right there.
Dude, we have all of these different formulas going on here. It's unbelievable. Here we go. Okay, so when we talk about teams making the playoffs, right? There are 9 divisions. Okay, starting from 1 to 5A. Okay, stay with me. Okay, there are 32 teams for each division, right? That's the playoffs. So there are 32 teams for Division 1, and there are 32 teams for Division 5A, right? Those are the teams that make the playoffs, okay? Those are the teams that make the playoffs. So the playoffs are a 32-team tournament for each division, okay? For the DEL, for the Desert Empire League, since it is a 6-team league, the DEL is a 6-team league, they are guaranteed 3 automatic qualifiers. Okay, so that means the first, second, and third place teams get automatic bids to their playoffs. Okay, so now what that means is, and this is going to be the struggling part, right? So all these teams, let's say in the DEL, we're looking at boys first. Palm Springs, Palm Desert, and Shadow Hills, okay? They're the ones that are in first, second, and third at the moment, okay? So those teams, if the season ended today, would be plugged into their respective divisions tournament, okay? And that's how the playoffs are going to be made up, all right? And so for the DVL, since it's an 8-team league, the DVL, the Desert Valley League, has 8 teams in it. They're guaranteed 4 automatic qualifiers, right? So they get the 1 extra team, okay? And so the way the playoffs work, they're going to take all of these automatic qualifiers to fill up their divisions. All of them until they have no more automatic qualifiers. Until they use them all up, that's what they're going to do, right? If they happen to have more automatic qualifiers than the 32 team slots, then they will play a few wildcard games with the lowest seeded teams to get to that 32 teams, right? But there will always only be 32 teams. If there happens to be open spots in the divisions of those 32 teams, that's when we get into the at-large teams, right? So I'm going to give you the exact quote that I wrote down, because I want everybody to understand this, and it's like almost like gibberish if you don't, right? So like let's like pump the brakes a little, let's slow it down a bit, and let's try to understand what we're talking about here, okay? If all the guaranteed teams are used with spots still left for the 32-team bracket, that's how at-large teams come into play, okay? So for like a team like, let's use Rancho Mirage as an example for boys basketball, right? Let's use them as an example. They are not going to be able to get to one of those first, second, or third place slots to get one of those automatic qualifiers, but they may have an opportunity to make the playoffs within their division if they meet the requirements for it. And I am going to go over these requirements for these teams, which is the qualifiers to be an at-large team is like, it's not even like that much, right? So basically all you have to do is you have to fill out a petition with your schedule and with all the scores on it, and you just basically have to have a 500 or better record. So if your win-loss is above 500, then we're looking pretty good. Now I'm not the one thing that I am kind of stumped on is are they talking about overall record wins losses, or are they talking about within your league, right? Because like for an instance, if it were Rancho Mirage, with them being at 3-6 within the DEL, by that standard they would not be able to qualify for an at-large bid. But if we're going over overall record 18-9, they would qualify for an at-large bid, right? So that's one of the things I would assume. I mean, if it was me, I would take an entire school's body of work throughout the season to determine that. So I believe that's what it is. It's the overall win-loss record. And by the looks of the DEL, 5 out of the 6 teams are above 500 overall, which is really good for the at-large teams because when the committee decides these at-large teams, they use different factors to pick these teams, right? And they'll tell you that no one has more weight or merit than the other. Maybe. Who knows? You decide. But there are some of these that are really good to determine picking these at-large teams. And just by going over these, you can kind of tell, or you can rank, if your team is sitting on the bubble, you can kind of see whether they're going to make it or not, or whether they have a really good chance to or not. Okay? So the first one is head-to-head. Okay, they're going to look at head-to-head matchups and see how you did against teams that are already possibly in your division in the playoffs, right? B would be strength of league. See, that's where that helps you with that, having 5 out of the 6 teams above 500 in the DEL. That's huge right there. That's a strong league. That's basically your entire league is competing for a playoff spot and a conference title. Your overall win-loss record is huge. Yeah, so if I'm just comparing and contrasting, now they might be in 2 different divisions, I have no idea, but if I'm looking at Rancho and Xavier Prep, Xavier Prep looks at 20-7 versus 18-9. Yeah, the 20-7 just aesthetically looks better to me if I'm picking. League finish, right? So now this is determining where you are lining up in your league standings, right? So say you're on the bubble and you're 4-5 like Xavier Prep here, and you finished 4th rather than 5th or 6th, like that's huge, versus Rancho Mirage finishing 5th or 4th, right? So where you stand probably doesn't have the biggest merit to me, because anything can kind of happen and it doesn't really tell, because some of those games might be overtime buzzer beaters. You never know. Like it always can factor in different things. Next is strength versus common opponents, right? Okay, so how well did you do versus another team and their common opponents? So perfect one here to use is Xavier Prep and Rancho Mirage, right? So common opponent would be did one or neither of these teams beat Palm Springs or Palm Desert or Shadow? Like that would be a common opponent because they play those teams. You can also use teams from preseason. If you use the same teams from preseason, or I know in college basketball, they'll even go as far as using like the Maui Invitational tournaments. Like, so they played against Kentucky way back then, even though they lost by 2 then, they still look pretty strong here. So like they can use that to their advantage or disadvantage. Next is strength of schedule. So now this is a good one, and I like this because back during the football days of when I was growing up and when I was at Palm Springs, it used to get me so mad because sometimes La Quinta would used to schedule one of the most difficult preseason schedules like I've ever seen, and just get rolled by teams sometimes. Granted, they would get one here and there, but most of the time it was either 1-3, 2-2, or 0-4 in preseason, and then they would come into DVL and just roll everyone then and win league at 6-4 and 5-5. Well, so aesthetically, to the bracket, their win-loss looked ugly versus when we came in second place when we won CIF, but we only had 2 losses to our name, right? Versus La Quinta, they were 6-4, right? So we kind of looked better, even though they beat us that year. So the strength of schedule can help and hurt you in certain situations, because if you do have the weakest schedule, well, just like in college football, you're not going to make it into the college playoffs with a weak schedule. Next one is this is an interesting one. Now the committee is starting to they're starting to get down to the nitty gritty here. This one is strength at the end of the season. All right, so this is an example of how well did your team finish. Okay, so an example would be let's take a look at Shadow Hills is a perfect example here, right? They're riding high on a 3-game winning streak right now. Okay, so if the committee was looking at them for an at-large bid, their strength at the end of the season looks real strong. They're on a 3-game winning streak and are almost peaking at the right moment at playoff time. Teams want the selection committee wants to pick teams that are going to compete in the playoffs. I mean, so if you're proving that you're trying to get in and you have a string of wins put together versus you started out hot and then you just completely tanked and lost 5 in a row, that's going to be very telling for a committee, very telling. And the final one that they use is computer rankings, which would be like Cal Preps and Max Preps and High this and I got this poll and that poll and this, that, and the third, right? So I did notice I was clicking around on the CIF website and they have polls for girls and boys basketball up for each division, right? Now the thing is, for those divisions, they put the 16 top teams, right? So their poll is only up to 16. Well, there's 32 teams that make the playoffs, right? So out of those 16 teams, you would have to imagine that I would say about 70% of them would win their league or their conference, or at least already have an automatic qualifier into the playoffs, right? So now, out of those 16 teams, you'll probably get maybe 4 or 5 at-large bids from him. Now the rest are teams that aren't ranked, right? So now you have an opportunity, even though you haven't been ranked, you have an opportunity to make some noise in the playoffs if you can get there. And that was one thing that was always huge for us for football. Take a drink. That was brutal. Oh, man. Shout out Big Rock for the water. Big time. But one of the things that we said about at Palm Springs, especially after we lost to La Quinta, is one, we'll never lose again. We didn't. Went on 8 straight CIF championship. What up? But 2 was, don't let us get into the playoffs. That was the thing. Don't let us get into the playoffs, because that was it. We weren't concerned with conference championships at the time, and getting into the playoffs was our biggest concern. And a team that peaks at the right moment is unstoppable. They really are. And so that is what the playoffs are all about. Now you can apply these basketball playoff rules to girls and boys. They're both the same from what I have looked up, and obviously there are not going to be more DEL teams for girls than there are for boys because the schools are in those leagues. Okay. When we do come back, we are going to wrap up class for the day, go over a couple of segments, and actually go over the standings here for basketball to see where they shake out, because we do have one more game left on the slate for these teams. So when we come back, this is Clahs. And we are back with the last period of class. I am Michael Carls, brought to you by Coachella Sports and Entertainment Stadium Authority. We are covering local athletics and high school sports. I am here live at Big Rock Golf and Pub, giving a little wave. Shout out to the fans. I love my fans here. Even though Scotty was giving me grief throughout the entire break about my crack in my voice. Yes, thank you, Scott. That's why I got my water there ready to go. Funny story. I'll tell you a funny story. And this one, man, it was hilarious. So freshman year, high school, Palm Springs High School, right? It was probably like first or second week we had pads on, running the offense, get up to the line, down, set, hike, and the whole entire team lost it. Didn't get the playoff, and it was just let's laugh at Mike for a good day. Good stuff, but it's good fun. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at the standings here for DEL and DVL basketball, girls and boys, and this is a basketball day, Shooty Hoops day today on Wednesday for Clahs, because there is one more game left tomorrow to finish up conference play before we get into the playoffs. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here in terms of the playoffs and seedings and what can happen as we move forward. Okay, so I'm going to start with the DVL girls basketball standings, and like I said, Cathedral City held on to their undefeated spot up at the top, beating 29 Palms in overtime. So they are 13-0. They will be looking to finish up the season versus Desert Mirage and looking to finish off conference play undefeated. They are at the moment 21-2 overall. Good grief, man! These girls are rolling. Next would be 29 Palms at 10-3, Coachella Valley at 10-4. And Yucca Valley at 9-4. Let's see if Coachella and So Coachella will be playing Banning and Yucca will be playing 29. This is interesting though, just from a seeding standpoint, right? Because as we just learned, hold on, let me get my chemistry notes out real quick because we were going over the playoffs. As we just learned, DVL teams, since there's 8, we get 4 guaranteed spots, right? So Cat City 29, Coachella and Yucca. Even though Coachella and Yucca are both 9-4, the seeding for 3 and 4 could make a huge difference. Banning is at 5-7, Desert Mirage 3-10, Indio 2-10, and Desert Hot Springs is 0-13. Hopefully they can get off the. Let's see who they're playing. Indio. They play Indio. I like it. Here we go. Okay, so now let's go over to the girls' Desert Empire basketball. And up at the top, 7-2, Palm Desert is leading the way. As long as they can take care of Rancho Mirage, they will have sole possession of the DEL championship. Other teams, La Quinta at 6-3, looking. Hopefully they can maybe get a share. We'd have to see what their head-to-head matchup is versus Palm Desert to see if they would have a tie in that or not. At third is Xavier Prep, holding on to that last and final spot there. Rancho Mirage is 4-5, so we may see something happen. We may not. Xavier Prep did just blow the doors off of Rancho Mirage last night, so they would have the head-to-head matchup, I do declare. Other than that, so those 3 teams, Rancho Mirage, Shadow Hills is at 3-6, and Palm Springs at 2-7. So as long as Xavier Prep can take care of business and Palm Desert can take care of business, they will seal up the first and third spot automatic qualifiers. Right, and that's good stuff for girls basketball. All right, now so for boys Desert Valley League basketball, Indio undefeated on top, 13-0, 20-4 on the season. Upcoming games for the Rajas, they will be playing Desert Hot Springs. Okay, these games will be on Thursday. Okay, so check those out for Thursday. Okay, 29 Palms is at 10-3, and Desert Hot Springs is also at 10-3. So 2 and 3 could shake up different here in terms of seeding for playoffs. But it is likely that both of those teams will make it no problems. Banning is in the 4th spot at 6-6. So it looks like they will take care of that last and final spot for the playoffs. Cathedral City is at 5-8. Yucca Valley is at 5-8. Desert Mirage 2-10. And Coachella Valley still trying to get off that schneid. 0-13 in conference play. And that is your boys Desert Valley League basketball standings going into the final game of the season. And last but not least, we do have Desert Empire League basketball, and things are going nuts here, right? Okay, so I have to say it has been quite a tough season for basketball teams trying to get an edge on some of these teams. Not very many can put a string of wins together to take a hold of it. Palm Springs still 7-2 at the top. Did lose to Shadow last night in a tough one. So they still have not closed out. They still have not closed out a league title yet. Next would be Palm Desert at 6-3, and then Shadow Hills is also at 6-3. Shadow Hills on their 3-game winning streak, completely just to me it was the turning point. The turning point was the buzzer beater from La Quinta over Xavier Prep the other night, and then Shadow Hills winning on that same day to continue to start their winning streak, because they were tied at the time in terms of standings, and so them taking a hold of that 3rd spot is huge. Now, if Xavier Prep can get a win over Shadow Hills for the final game of the season, that would be huge for them for that at-large bid. That would be huge for Coach Subcheck and that team. Those guys are a fun bunch to watch.
Where's that game at?
The game for Xavier Prep will be at Shadow Hills. If you're looking for one to check out, yeah, that would be the one. That would be the best matchup.
Should we go see some shooty hoops tomorrow?
Shooty hoops tomorrow. I love talking some round ball. I don't get a chance to that much. I don't get to flex my basketball knowledge as much as I'd like, but it's good stuff to watch, and I love watching these guys play. And the coaches have it's fun to watch what they're trying to accomplish. Like last night, with like 3 minutes left in the game, and Rancho Mirage was down about 6. Coach started fouling like immediately, so they wouldn't give up any more points. And that's such a great kind of tactic to use, because if you don't hit your foul shots, that lets the team get back into the game at a pretty quickly rate. So the hitting your foul shots is huge, and teams will see a ton of that in the postseason, a ton of that, because these teams don't want to lose and they don't want their season to end. So they're going to string it out as long as possible. And I know one of the refs was telling us the other night that this had happened originally too, where a team was down 19 and they started fouling with like 6 minutes left in the game and brought the deficit down to almost single digits, which is it's amazing to be able to do that. So if we're looking for some games to go to tomorrow, go ahead and check out all your local favorite teams will be playing. They'll be their last games of the season, so go ahead and check them out. It will be your final chance, if you haven't seen them, to see them before playoffs start, or if your teams didn't make the playoffs, go ahead and support them one more time, especially if it's senior night. Those seniors put in a lot of effort the 4 years that they've been there, and it would be great to have some fans in the stands for sure. And it was you could definitely tell that the seniors were hyped to play last night at the Xavier Prep game. And that is actually going to wrap it up for us. Pretty long show today, actually. We did cover a lot of ground today, talking about leadership, talking playoff basketball, and I'm excited for playoffs to roll around and spring season. We can start thinking about baseball. We can start thinking about track. Love talking track, and we can actually get into some off-season, and maybe we can see what these, I hate to bring it up, but man, these football players, they got something special going on in this valley, and I see these guys competing on a 7-on-7 level, and it's huge, and maybe we can get some guys in to talk to them. It would be great stuff for the spring. So on behalf of Coachella Sports and Entertainment Stadium Authority, I am Michael Carls, and class is dismissed.